The movie starts on a strange planet called Barsoom, which consists of three major kingdoms: Helium, Zodanga, and Tharks. Helium and Zodanga have been at war for centuries. At the beginning of the movie, we see the army of Helium in blue capes battling the army of Zodanga in red capes. The general of Zodanga, named Sab-Than, is approached by three men who claim to be messengers of God, called Therns. The leader of the Therns, Ma Tai Shang, gives him a mysterious blue weapon and tells him that the goddess has chosen him to receive it. The Therns have decided to help Zodanga in the war. They possess control over a mysterious blue light called the Ninth Ray, which makes them stronger than other living creatures on Barsoom. We cut to New York City in 1881. A young man named Edgar is summoned by his uncle, John Carter, to New York City. When Edgar arrives at the station, he is greeted by Thompson, John's butler, who takes him to John's estate. As it turns out, John is a wealthy man and a former Confederate Army captain. John's lawyer, Noah Dalton, sadly informs Edgar of John's sudden death. John has left all his vast wealth to Edgar. Dalton takes a surprised Edgar to John's mausoleum, where his body is being preserved. But strangely, the door of the mausoleum only opens from the inside. Later, the lawyer hands Edgar John's journal, which John wanted only Edgar to read. When Dalton leaves, Edgar begins to read it. The journal starts by mentioning that Edgar was the only one who believed John's wild stories when he was little, so it only feels right to tell this tale to Edgar. The story begins in Arizona after the Civil War. John Carter, a former captain in the Confederate Army, is currently looking for gold in caves. Powell, a Union colonel, wants John to help his U.S. cavalry soldiers against the Apache, so he abducts him and tries drafting him. However, John doesn't want to fight as a soldier anymore. After several failed attempts at running away, he manages to escape by knocking a guard out and stealing the colonel's horse. The colonel and his men pursue John until they come across a mounted Apache warband. John attempts to talk to them, but a shootout with the Apache people ensues. Amid the chaos, John tries to run away, but the colonel gets injured in the fight. Out of pity, John helps the colonel and brings him to a nearby cave. This cave is new to John, as he has never been inside this specific cave before. He goes inside, lights a match, and is beyond surprised to see lots of gold embedded in the ceiling of the cave. However, just then a man appears behind him out of nowhere. This man is one of the people we saw at the beginning of the movie. The colonel alerts John, who immediately shoots the man, causing him to fall to the ground. When John approaches him, he hears the man muttering about a place called Barsoom while looking at a strange medallion in his hands. John picks up the medallion and repeats the word Barsoom. Suddenly, a bright blue light flashes from the locket. When John opens his eyes again, he finds himself in a strange desert. He gets up and tries walking, but the gravity on the planet is different from Earth's, so he falls every time he attempts to take a step. It seems as though he can float in midair. Confused, he practices moving around in the new environment. He discovers that the best way to travel is by leaping through the air. As he travels, he reaches a hill nearby where several eggs are hatching. Just then, a large group of green creatures with 4 arms appear, riding on massive animals. The leader attacks him, prompting John to take a huge leap. The rest start firing at John, but stop when their leader commands them to. The creature speaks in a different language and introduces himself as Tars Tarkus. John introduces himself as John Carter from Virginia, but the creatures mistakenly think his name is Virginia. Tars asks John to jump as he did before, so he does, but attempts to attack Tars in the process. The creatures injure John and take him hostage. As they converse, we learn that their kind is called Tharks. Elsewhere on the same planet, the Princess of Helium, Deja, practices presenting a weapon she has designed to her father, the King of Helium. Helium is at war with Zodanga and is about to lose because the Therns are supporting Zodanga. Deja has discovered the secret of the Ninth Ray to aid in the war. However, when she presents her weapon to the king, a man secretly causes a malfunction. After everyone leaves, the king discusses with Deja the proposal from the king of Zodanga, Sab-Than, who wants to marry Deja to end the war. She is vehemently against it. If Sab-Than marries her, he will become the Prince of Helium and will have the power to rule all of Barsoom. Meanwhile, the Tharks take John to their city and place him with the newly born infants. That night, a female Thark named Sola gives John a liquid. after which he can understand the language of the Tharks. The following day, the Tharks order John to demonstrate his high jump in front of everyone. John notices that the medallion is with Tars. Without it, he cannot return home. Just then, two battleships appear in the sky. The soldiers from Helium and Zodanga are engaged in battle. The war entertains the Tharks, who wager on the outcome. Princess Deja, disguised, fights inside one of the ships. She tries to take control, but falls off in the process. John, using his newfound jumping abilities, rescues the princess. The Tharks start cheering for John, who is now fighting alongside Deja against Zodanga's soldiers. John's efforts help turn the tide of the battle in favor of Helium, but their ship crashes to the ground. Deja and John join the Tharks, who encircle them. Impressed by John's abilities, Tars makes him his right-hand man. John is initially reluctant, but agrees to the role. He is given the nickname Dotar Sojat. That night, while the Tharks clean up the debris from the fallen ship, Deja and John talk. Deja reveals to John that they are on Mars, which is called Barsoom in their language. Initially, John is surprised and skeptical. He tells her that he is from Earth. Deja finds that hard to believe as well. Due to his thicker bone density and the planet's low gravity, John possesses incredible strength and can leap high. John explains the medallion that transported him to Mars. Now understanding his situation, Deja takes him to the Tharks Temple, a forbidden place. She hopes the temple holds clues about how people can travel between worlds, as John did. The kind female Thark, Sola, follows them, pleading for them to stop. Inside, Deja shows John the statue of the goddess Isus and reads some inscriptions engraved on it. However, the three are soon arrested by the Tharks and sentenced to death for entering the temple. Tars requests to be left alone with the prisoners, purportedly to cut off John's hands. Once alone, John discovers that Tars is Sola's father and does not want them to die by Thark hands. Tars hands John his medallion and instructs him to travel to the river Iz to unravel the mystery of the goddess Isus and return to his world. Later, when the Tharks check the room, they perceive Tars as having betrayed them. Tars' rival, Tal Hajas, seizes control and declares himself the new leader. John, Deja, and Sola head for the river Iz, led by Deja. However, Sola suspects that Deja has an ulterior motive and warns John. John confronts Deja about her intentions, and it is revealed that she is taking him to her city to recruit him as a soldier in the war. Disappointed, John asks Sola to lead the way and decides to leave the princess there. Deja insists that she only acted as she did because she doesn't want to marry Sabtan, revealing that she is the princess. John believes her, and after a discussion, they continue their journey together. The trio sails through the river Iz and reaches a massive inverted pyramid. John and Deja climb to the top and observe strange blue energy forming on the ground. It opens a door and a pathway for them to walk through. Deja realizes that this is the power of the ninth ray, which she had used to create her weapon. They also deduce that John's arrival on Mars was likely due to the transmission of a copy of himself from Earth to Mars with the help of the ninth ray. Just then, an army of Warhoon, led by Matai Shang, the leader of the Therns, approaches. John bravely tells Deja and Sola to run away while he confronts the Warhoon army alone. Suddenly, the King of Helium sends his army to aid John, defeating the Warhoon and rescuing an unconscious John. When Deja confronts her father, she is surprised to find Sabtan there. He arrives unarmed, offering her his weapon to end his life. However, he also proposes marriage as an alternative, suggesting it could unite their two cities. With no apparent other way to stop the war, Deja reluctantly agrees to marry him. In the following scene, we see an injured John waking up in a chamber in the Helium Palace. A soldier appointed by Deja, named Kantos Khan, fetches him and secretly takes him to her chamber. Deja begs John to stay and fight for Helium. When he doesn't respond, Deja teaches John the words that will take him home using the medallion. When the guards enter her chamber, John disappears. Deja thinks that he went back to Earth, but John is actually hiding in the ceiling. After the guards leave, he tries to go outside but is soon captured by Matai Shang. John is surprised by Matai Shang's ability to morph into any creature around him. The whole city is preparing for Sabtan and Deja's wedding. Matai Shang binds John to himself with the help of technology developed from the ninth ray. John is unable to move his body at will, as Matai Shang seems to be controlling him with a wrist device. Ma Tai-shang then reveals to John that Sab Than plans to kill Deja and invade Helium after their marriage because of her knowledge of the ninth ray. The Thurn supported Sab Than in the war because he was the easiest to manipulate, but Ma Tai-shang aims to rule all of Barsoom through Sab Than. Just as Ma Tai-shang is about to kill John, Woola, the alien dog John had befriended earlier, comes to his rescue. It bites off Ma Tai-shang's wrist device, freeing John. He hurries to a flying craft and flies away to stop Deja from marrying Sab Than. He runs into Sola, who joins him to find an army to stop Sab Than. However, John doesn't know how to control the aircraft, and it crashes near Thark territory. The Tharks capture John and Sola along with a beaten Tars. Tal Hodges, now the leader of the Tharks, forces John and Tars into an arena to fight massive beasts called white apes. John manages to defeat the apes in front of the Thark population. He then challenges Tal Hodges to a duel and defeats him in one go, cutting off his head. Everyone cheers for John, who is now the new leader of the Tharks. He then persuades the Tharks to help him fight against Zodanga. The army of Tharks, led by John, makes their way to the wedding ceremony of Deja and Sab Than. John arrives just in time to stop the wedding. Upon seeing John, Sab Than nearly kills Deja, but John intervenes. A war between the soldiers of the two cities erupts once again. However, the Tharks now ally with Helium. Zodanga quickly succumbs, but Ma Tai-shang manages to escape with John's medallion. John decides to live on Mars as Deja's husband, dismissing the need to search for the medallion. He and Deja marry, and the crowd cheers for them. John is now the Prince of Helium. The following morning, John and Deja are on a balcony. Deja goes back inside, leaving John alone when Ma Tai-shang appears and uses the medallion to send John back to Earth. When John awakens, he is covered in dust and his beard has grown longer. He finds himself in the same cave and sees Colonel Powell's remains, indicating that a long time has passed on Earth while he was on Mars. Frantically searching for the medallion, John realizes it's gone. Without a way back, he is stranded. However, convinced that more medallions exist on Earth, he establishes a mining corporation and searches covertly for another medallion. After 10 years of relentless effort, he finally discovers one at a mining site. John is relieved, but he knows that the Thurns have been monitoring him all this time. His body on Earth must be safeguarded while he travels to Mars, because any harm to it would cause him to die on both planets. This is why his mausoleum only opens from the inside. He orchestrated his own death to facilitate his return to Mars. John writes in his diary that he wants Edgar to protect his mausoleum from the Thurns and, consequently, his wealth. Shocked after reading the diary, Edgar goes to the mausoleum and attempts to open it with a secret password, which turns out to be Ned, the name John affectionately called Edgar when he was a child. As the mausoleum doors open, a Thurn who had been spying on Edgar approaches, intending to kill John. Before he can strike, someone from behind knocks him out, saving Edgar. Edgar is astonished to see his uncle standing before him. John takes the Thurn's medallion. As it turns out, he had never found it. All his actions, including faking his death, were part of a ruse to lure the Thurn and seize his medallion. John then entrusts Edgar with the ongoing protection of his mausoleum and steps inside. He lies down with the medallion and begins the chant that will take him back to Mars.